Where danger and beauty dance. Clew had first hoped to spend the journey to Rodinia in meditation and self-reflection. Now was an excellent time to focus on himself and consider ways to make improvements to his ministry. The next morning, he gave that up as a waste of time. He was embarking on a new journey, and he needed versatility above all other qualities. Several years had elapsed since he had last built a congregation from scratch. So he decided to practice by proselytizing the crew. The crew spent their working days in zero-gravity sections of the ship. But they ate, slept, and spent their free time in the rotating sections where Clew and Jolene stayed. Clew had nothing to lose with this crew, so the situation provided a unique opportunity for growth. He began by learning the names of every crew member, 50 in total, with various positions. Clew was friendly, but not needy. He put no expectations on them, but made himself known. Later, in casual conversation with two of the crew, he invited them to meditate with him in the morning. Both agreed and showed before their shifts the next day. Clew led them through a cleansing meditation in a variety of positions. At the end, both had been strengthened, and Clew encouraged them to invite their friends to future meditations. The following day, 3 people came, 2 new attendees and just 1 repeat. Again, he encouraged all present to bring friends the next day. 6 people came on day 3, 4 repeats and 2 new. Progress. 1 month into the journey to Rodinia, over half of the crew was regularly attending meditations. He had a rotating timetable, so all would be able to participate during the week. Clew began to establish doctrines surrounding the intermediary journey to remind himself how the concepts fell on new ears. Revivals allowed us to live again, Clew told them. But we have not achieved perfection. We have returned to life early and must look forward to the hereafter when we will be perfected. Naturally, some fell away after Clew began establishing the doctrine, but they were in the minority by then. They would return, if just for the social aspect. "What are you doing with these people?" Jolene asked with exasperation at the start of month 2. "You realize this trip only lasts a few months, right?" "They participate in the meditations of their own accord," Clew said. "Besides, it's a unique opportunity to experiment. Everyone benefits." "I don't like it," Jolene said. Clew gave her a helpless smile, knowing he really shouldn't enjoy her discomfort. "That sounds like a reason to continue." Jolene fell silent from then on and observed Clew from a distance, a perplexed expression on her face. The time had come for Clew to establish leadership among them. With such a small congregation, Clew selected 6 anointed ones from the crew. He could have chosen from the ship's command structure, but instead chose based on his own observations of who would serve with the most devotion. He declared them before the crew, and soon they fell into place as leaders. The 6 anointed ones were responsible for 9 crew members each. They led the daily meditations, taught of the intermediary journey, and pointed the way to perfection in the hereafter. Clew even implemented a simplified version of initiatives, a transient's role in building the community. The first real surprise in the experiment came halfway through month 3, 5 weeks before they were to arrive at Rodinia. The captain of the freight ship wanted to speak with Clew. Normally, Clew would have referred the captain to his anointed one. But given the man's position, Clew condescended to meet in person. Clew left the centrifuge for the first time, venturing into other sections. Ship operations were in zero gravity. There were no windows, just screens and instruments for navigation. Upon seeing Clew, the captain wasted no time in explaining the situation. "What?" Clew asked when the captain had said his piece. "I just don't think it's appropriate that I remain in command," the captain said. "I would feel better if my anointed one stepped in, or even you." He motioned at Clew. Clew gawked at the man, trying not to look dumbfounded. "You have knowledge crucial to running this ship." Clew eyed all the sensors and instruments. "I will continue to serve, Elder," the captain said. "However, my anointed one pointed out that Knowledge does not necessarily qualify one for leadership. Therefore, I will accept a different initiative. We all must serve where we're best suited, and I believe I would be more beneficial in an advisory role." The discussion was over. The captain stepped down as commander of the ship, and his anointed one, Iris, stepped in to fill his place at Clew's request. "You have to stop this," Jolene said later that night before bed. "Captain Gareth is still overseeing navigation and everything," Clew said. "He's just not formally in charge." "These are Murphy employees," Jolene said. "What happens when we get to Rodinia and their whole command structure has inverted?" "Nothing is official," Clew said. "Besides, this is a one-off." But at the start of the final month of transit, both the first and second officers resigned in favor of two other anointed ones, Lee and Dana. The anointed ones proceeded to make changes to the ship's command structure over the next week as they saw fit to rebalance the crew's initiatives. Everything came to a head 3 days before they were to arrive at Rodinia. Clew had been cooped up with the crew for 4 months. He itched to once again be on natural solid ground, not this rotating monstrosity. He was observing a service overseen by Lee when Iris tapped him on the shoulder. "Forgive me, Elder," she said. "There's been an issue with Jolene." "What happened?" Clew said, standing and slipping out into the hall with her. "She seems to believe Gareth is still the captain," Iris said. "When I informed her that I had assumed the position, she grew angry." Clew groaned, wondering just how much of a problem Jolene would cause. "Let's go." Clew followed Iris to the crew quarters, where Jolene sat at a table with her hands buried in her hair. "Clew, you have to stop this," Jolene said. Iris leaned into Jolene with hostility. "Address him as Elder." "It's okay," Clew said, focusing on Jolene. "What do I have to stop?" "We're off course, as in we're going to miss Rodinia by 100,000 kilometers, Jolene said. "We have less than 2 hours to correct the issue before we have to loop around and add another 2 months onto the journey. But Captain Gareth doesn't feel qualified to implement a course correction, and no one else is qualified, regardless of their feeling on the matter." She ended with a meaningful glare at Iris. Alarm overtook Clew's face. 2 more months? That could not happen. He looked at Iris. "Is this true?" "Gareth isn't captain anymore," Iris said. "I mean about our course, Iris," Clew said. "Yeah, that's true, but we're all doing the best we can within our initiatives," Iris said. Clew stopped listening to her. "Where's Gareth?" Jolene pointed to a bunk where a man lay covered by a sheet. Clew crossed over to where Gareth lay. "What are you doing here?" "I failed you, Elder," the former captain said. Days must have passed since he last shaved. "I'm sorry." "You didn't fail me," Clew said. "In fact, I was just thinking about how well you had excelled at navigating. I think it's time we added a 7th anointed one. I'm keen on that being you. And your new initiative can be to resume your duty as captain." "Are you serious?" Captain Gareth asked, eyes lighting. "This ship would be lucky to have your service," Clew said. "Thank you, Elder," Captain Gareth said. I won't disappoint you. Just get us back on track for Rodinia." "Right away, Elder," Captain Gareth said, and sprinted off to resume his post. Clew returned to Iris and Jolene. Iris looked smug, eyeing Jolene. "Well, perhaps you'll think twice about meddling with command in the future. Elder resolved the issue without you." "He literally did what I just told him to do," Jolene said. "That's basically an admission that he was wrong to remove the captain." "We all make mistakes, even him," Iris said. "If anything, that strengthens my trust in him." Clew began to back away. Jolene huffed. "Maybe he shouldn't have allowed an inventory specialist literally the least technical position on the ship, to assume the role of captain. They continued arguing, but Clew departed, vowing to spend the rest of the trip in isolation, as he had initially intended. And so it was that upon arriving at the Rodinian space station, Clew became the hero of the journey for having the foresight to install a new captain during such a critical moment. Moreover, the receiving bay was shocked to realize that most of the crew of the freight ship had reorganized themselves of their own free will. Clew left the crew, entirely unsure if he should encourage the rest to switch back to their original positions. But he wouldn't see any of them again. Best just to let them work that out amongst themselves. "Glad we got out of there alive," Jolene said when at last they had docked with the Rodinian space station. "Warn me next time you set up a cult in a confined area. I'll clear out." Clew left the freight ship with her, happy to be in a new location. The Rodinian space station was one of the most advanced structures in all of Laurasia. Clew understood little of how it worked. Apparently, it rested at something called a geostationary orbit, and a space elevator connected it to the equator of Rodinia. Some kind of asteroid counterweight kept the entire thing afloat. Jolene explained everything to Clew as they traveled through the station. Clew didn't understand until their feet returned to solid ground in a rotating section of the station. A window provided context to the situation. Rotating below was Rodinia, a black planet with a yellow atmosphere. Extending from the space station down to the surface was what looked like a chain. Ascending that tether on one side was the climber. The precarious tether dragged in the atmosphere, but was mostly taut. A window along the other wall showed the cable extending into space and out of sight. A massive asteroid floated beyond. "That's our ride down," Jolene said, eyes locked on the elevator climbing the chain. The ride down to the planet was a weightless experience until the very end, when the descent slowed and gravity exerted itself. "You know, if this tether broke, it's actually long enough to wrap around the planet's equator several times," Jolene said to Clew in a loud voice to drown out the hum of the descender. "Why would you tell me that now?" Clew asked. "Just making conversation," Jolene said with exasperation. When at last they came to a stop, the elevator attendant rushed to undo Clew's harness and open the door. Clew stepped out to Rodinia for the first time. He was in a massive entryway that seemed to be made of a dark blue metal. The ceiling was glass, framing the space elevator extending up forever. "We're actually on the top floor of a skyscraper," Jolene said. "The tallest building on Rodinia. It merges with the space elevator here." "What is this place?" Clew asked. "The center of operations on Rodinia," Jolene said. "Travis likes to call it the Citadel. And for future reference, it's shaped like a penis because Travis's is small. Just don't ask how I know." Clew groaned. "Do you have to speak like that?" Jolene smirked at Clew, walking beside him through the blue metallic room. "Like what? We got boob-shaped buildings too. I just assumed, what with you being a celibate monk and all, that you'd be more inclined toward the—" "What operations take place on this planet?" Clew said. He had been patient for long enough. It was time for answers. Jolene bumped into Clew with purposeful clumsiness. "That information hasn't been released yet, oh chaste one. It's up to Travis to tell you. He used to be Murphy's chief research officer until people started calling him the Crow, so now he goes by his name. But none of that affects your ministry. I've seen you in action now, unfortunately." "I still don't know who I'm ministering to," Clew said. Jolene pressed a finger against Clew's lips. "No more questions, at least not for me. Over here, Holiness." She led Clew to a door that was 3 times taller than a human. She grasped the long vertical handle, pulled, and motioned Clew to enter. Inside was an office with a black and blacker color palette. A desk with a black and gold lamp waited at the center. Framing everything was a window overlooking the black landscape with a yellow atmosphere. Blue lightning lit the land in frequent bursts. A man stood with his back to Clew, watching the blue lighting sweep the sky. "It's beautiful, Rodinia, don't you think?" he asked, peering back at Clew. He had a face that was close to being attractive, but ruined in obvious ways. His stubble, while thick, was patchy. Scars from past acne marked his jawline. He slouched, resulting in a slight gut. Clew cleared his throat. "It's terrifying. Like one misplaced step will end your existence." The man turned to Clew in full, expression amused. "Most people just agree, too in shock to form a proper opinion." "Most people have narrow minds," Clew said, pausing just long enough to make the man consider if he was included in that assessment. "They never consider the relationship between themselves and the cosmos." "I see," the man said, giving a deliberate lack of reaction. "And are you this blunt with your congregation?" Clew played his game, showing no emotion. "Only to those who require bluntness to achieve a more enlightened state." The man stared at Clew for a protracted minute. Finally, he looked at Jolene and smiled, an unnatural expression for his face. "Ooh, I like him." He bounced his finger in Clew's direction while walking to Jolene. "Clew," Jolene said, "this is Travis." She kissed him on the cheek when he drew close. Then she withdrew, looking at Travis. "I told you he'd be perfect." Travis pursed his lips, disguising his impatience in a mask of contentment. "Run along, sweetheart. I have much to discuss with our new revelation." Jolene gave Travis's shoulder a pat, winked at Clew, and left them alone in the room. Travis gave Clew a knowing smirk, motioning after Jolene. "One of the first revived on Rodinia. She's been with me almost since the beginning of this operation. She never disappoints." Clew didn't know how to respond to this statement. He had few rules for himself, but he never got romantically involved with a person in his ministry. Travis did not seem to share in that sentiment. Of course, he had to be a git. "What about the landscape do you find beautiful?" Clew asked to start on a different foot. Travis tipped his head to the window, where lightning illuminated the sky in regular bursts. "Perhaps it's because of the danger you pointed out. No one wanted this task, but I saw the potential. Rodinia's dense atmosphere and proximity to the sun has always posed a particular challenge to the Laurasian colonization. Until now, it seems," Clew said. Men like Travis wanted to feel important. How transparent they wished their subordinates to be in their admiration was always a mystery, though. "Even now, which is why you're here," Travis said, eating the implied compliment with all the humility of a politician pretending to understand their constituents. Clew suppressed an involuntary grin. This was his new employer? "To be a light to a people in darkness, I presume." "Of course." Travis gave a mock bow. Clew made a show of considering the situation. "You are to be commended. Recognizing the need for spiritual connection is an important first step to true enlightenment." Travis gave a slight chuckle. "This isn't for me, but my subjects." "I see," Clew said. He had wondered about Travis. He was obviously the type who considered religion to be a great idea. For everyone else. Travis poured himself a drink at a bar along the edge of the room. "Do you believe what you teach about this being an intermediary state? That we're somehow trapped between lives and the hereafter will be some kind of paradisiacal glory?" He sipped his drink. "Why would you assume I believe otherwise?" Clew asked. Travis shrugged with a lazy wave of his glass. "It's okay if you don't. You've got the job, obviously." Clew pretended to consider. "I want it to be true." "Why?" Travis asked, eyes suddenly fierce. Clew took a breath, making no rush to answer as a play to maintain control in the conversation. "Because if not, then this is all we have to aspire to. This one existence, universe, society. And we seem to have screwed up." "Interesting," Travis said, distant eyes looking past the glass in his hand. That makes you more of a liability than I had hoped. How? Clew asked, adopting inquisition and understanding. Travis finished his drink and set the glass down. Because if your actions are motivated by the pursuit of faith, what happens when the belief dries up? He stared at Clew. Clew did not back down. This was a power move. Travis seemed to want to intimidate Clew. Perhaps it was to assess his ability to deal with scrutiny. I believe in spirituality as a means to achieve peace in the human mind, Clew spoke, even and controlled. He sounded like an infomercial, but that's what Travis wanted. The specifics of my doctrine don't change the need for spirituality. Travis held Clew's gaze in silence before breaking into a fake bliss smile. Good. Walk with me. I'll give you a tour. Travis exited the office, not bothering to check if Clew would follow. Lagging behind, Clew glanced around the top floor of the Citadel. Only now did he realize how empty everything was. No people crowded in the walkways, and no furniture gave personality to the barren metal halls. It's empty, Clew said in an observing tone. The building is new. Travis strolled through the building towards a lift and pressed the down button. We're starting from scratch on this planet. So far, less than 10,000 people live here, the bare minimum to start building basic infrastructure. The lift arrived and they descended to the ground. A massive room waited for them at the bottom. Clew stepped from the lift, looking around. The room was unfinished, with an exposed ceiling and concrete walls. It was also completely empty. This is not what Clew would have pictured as the ground floor of the Citadel. A future assembly hall? This is a warehouse, Travis said in bemusement. We'll have a lot of exports after a few years. The Citadel will coordinate that by funneling our finished product up the elevator and out of the atmosphere. I see, Clew said. Don't worry, Travis said. We'll build you a religious facility somewhere nearby. What do you want? A synagogue? Church? Temple? He spoke as if installing buildings was a trivial matter. I'll assess my needs here and let you know, Clew said. How many will be in my congregation? 1 million, Travis said without hesitation. Give or take, depending on the year. Everyone on the planet. Drop the details for now. First, I have a moral litmus test for you. Let's see if you really believe in removing human suffering through spirituality. How? Clew asked, pretending to believe that Travis had any ability to assess such a thing. Travis turned towards Clew, having wandered to the center of the warehouse floor and clasped his hands. What do you know about this planet? Aside from it being a shithole we're forced to have a good attitude about. Clew made a show of considering the issue to satisfy Travis's need to feel like an effective leader. He scratched the back of his neck and squinted. Been empty for years, hasn't it? It's hot, close to the sun. Not the sort of place any bloke right in the head would want to live. Travis laughed, seeming gratified by Clew's comment. Right enough. Murphy bought it a decade back. It may be hostile to life compared to other Laurasian planets, but it has resources. And that's what we're after. To what end? Clew asked. Travis pointed upwards to the windows in a row along the tall wall. The outside light mixed with the bulbs overhead. We're about to revolutionize energy production. Outpace Sol forever. With the resources of this planet, we're going to build a Dyson sphere. You'll need to clarify what that means, Clew said in apology. I'm a religious leader, not a science whiz. It's a solar megastructure, something long theorized but never tried. Travis made a cage with his curved fingers around an imaginary ball. An array of satellites, hundreds of thousands strong, will soon orbit our sun. They'll collect energy and send it back to the planets. Within a decade, we will be producing more energy than anyone. Not just in Laurasia, but the galaxy. Travis seemed to want to impress Clew with the project's scope, but he had already implied it would come at a cost. I see no moral dilemma so far, Clew said. Travis lowered his hands. We're reviving our own workers for the project. Such a structure requires massive amounts of raw materials. An entire planet's worth of raw materials, in fact. When we're done, this planet will be a husk. We'll have to strip everything away to send a finished product in parts to the sun. Clew shrugged. He was far less interested in the project than Travis seemed to think he should be. That's your closest neighbor, at least. Indeed, Travis said, examining Clew. Anyway, this all requires physical labor until our robotics capacity is sufficient to take over. But that would depend on additional funding. Travis kept hinting at the moral compromise he would make to create his Dyson sphere. Clew cleared his throat, determined to make Travis stop implying and start explaining. Okay. We'll be targeting individuals we think are unlikely to switch out from a family request. We also want people who will accept their lot here on Rodinia. You want slaves, Clew said. Best to state the obvious from the outset. They'll be paid, Travis said. We're in the process of creating a currency for this planet. A currency that feeds your economy, Clew said. Granting them spending power doesn't change your control over them. Travis slumped, seeming to believe the discussion was going south. Look, everyone has to switch out somewhere. Is it really so bad that some land on a manufacturing planet? Clew pretended to consider. I suppose not. The relief on Travis's face was unmistakable. Besides, you're gonna make their lives so much better. Teach them to make the best of an unfortunate situation. We're in an intermediary stage of life, after all. Isn't that right? You don't believe in the intermediary journey, Clew said. No, Travis said in admission. But it's irrelevant. The spiritual pursuit is what improves their lives, as you said. Why do you need me? Clew asked. You've got the funding. You're building the facilities. So why bring me in? You were born on Earth, right? Yes. Travis nodded, beginning to pace with steepled fingers. Think back thousands of years ago. When the Roman Empire was expanding, the cultural clash between the Romans and the Jews threatened to fracture the entire empire. The God of the Jews was incompatible with the idolatrous state of the Romans. War between the peoples did not resolve the issue, so the Romans embraced a new paradigm. Jesus of Nazareth preached tolerance of the Roman occupation, removed the militant aspects of Judaism, and installed pacifism as a virtue. He was perfect for the Romans. He either fulfilled or destroyed the law, depending on your perspective. In short, they embraced the power of religion to subdue the people. You want to use my doctrine as a means to control your people, Clew said. Travis tilted his hand back and forth. They'll be revived here whether you agree to help or not. By participating, you improve their lives and avoid the legal consequences of defrauding your last congregation. You benefit, they benefit, and so do the people of Laurasia. Clew felt both uneasy and intrigued. What happens when it falls apart? Outsiders won't go along with this. Travis gave a deviant smile. Look into the sky, Clew. He motioned up to the high windows. Across Laurasia are 6 planets and thrice as many moons, all brimming with people. They go about their lives, seeking food and entertainment, and not much else. The situation here on Rodinia is no secret. The people condone it. Their lives are comfortable, and doing nothing will not change that. But solving this inequality would require action, and action is hard. They don't want to give up their nice lives, especially when the problem is a planet removed from them. They will do nothing. But you can. You can make the world a better place for the lowest in our society. Clew gave a begrudging nod. He had a point. A planet removed from society at large was likely the best way to mitigate this venture's risk. When do you start reviving people? It's already begun, but will ramp up in the coming years. Travis motioned to Clew in welcome. Shall I introduce them to Clew, their spiritual guide into the hereafter? My followers call me Elder, Clew said. Why is that? In living years, I'm one of the oldest humans alive, Clew said. I was 93 when the last war broke out and was one of the first revived afterward. Then I was one of the first to transplant to Laurasia. Travis bowed to Clew, eyes never leaving his face. I can think of no one better to impart the wisdom of the cosmos. In the coming years, we will populate this planet. People from all eras will switch out here and take place in the greatest construction project humanity has ever performed. The road will be long. They will need spiritual guidance, Clew. I'd like that to come from you. Clew pretended to consider the proposal. He bit his lip and dipped his head. I can offer spiritual guidance, he said at last. Travis grasped Clew's shoulder, and the two shared an intimate gaze, one of trust and understanding. Come, Elder, Travis responded. Let's meet your people. Clew motioned Travis first out the door, prepared to do the man's bidding for a season. Murphy would be a unique chapter in this life, but it would come to an end. The trouble with Travis's plan was in his reasoning. He was short-sighted, as most businesses were. But Clew understood people in the long term. Catholicism outlived the Roman Empire by 1,000 years, and Clew would survive both Travis and Murphy on Rodinia. Now that was a prospect to give meaning to a life that had already stretched so long. Clew had never owned a planet before.